That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Synchronic, the fourth feature directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, which premiered at the 2019 Toronto International Film Festival and will be distributed October 23rd, 2020, courtesy of Wellgo USA.
This movie is about two EMT workers, Steve and
Dennis.
Dennis is played by Jamie Dornan.
Correct.
And Alex, Steve is played by Anthony Mackie. Okay, so they drive the ambulance, or they ride in the back of the ambulance in New Orleans, modern time, and they're witnessing the ravages of a designer drug called Synchronic. And the effects of it are interesting because we witness two people on it who appeared to be hallucinating, but when they're found by the EMT workers, one of them has like a snake bite from a snake that's not indigenous to the area. They find another person who appears to have suffered from spontaneous combustion. Weird things have happened.
And something with a sword.
Right.
Someone stabbed with an old sword.
So Steve, Jamie Dornan's character, Dennis is married with an 18-year-old kid and like a younger kid, like a newborn. And Steve, Anthony Mackie's character, he's a single man. We also find out that he's suffering from an inoperable brain tumor.
But the brain tumor has also allowed something.
His pineal gland
is young and supple.
Has not calcified as it should have at a person of his age, so it's young and supple, which is relevant. Jamie Dornan's 18-year-old daughter goes missing.
Yes, from a party where other people have been taking that drug, so it appears that she probably did.
Anthony Mackie goes to like a smoke shop to purchase like all of the Synchronic, and then like choose out the worker, saying like what you're selling is like destroying people.
Well, and we also learned that it's been discontinued, of course.
While he's in line purchasing this drug, there's a man behind him, and he bought all of it, but the man wants some, so he chases him out of the store and says, "Please, I'll pay $2,000. Give me the drugs." And Steve says, "No, get away from me." But that man follows Steve home and like enters his home. They have a confrontation, but the man explains he's a scientist, the scientist who developed this drug. So he explains that it basically alters like time and space. So it's become a time travel movie because more background on Steve is prior to becoming an EMT, he was pre-med. So I guess it's setting up the idea that he's smart and understands science more than maybe he should. And he decides to conduct an experiment by taking Synchronic. And he discovers that based on the location an individual is in when the drug hits, that will determine where and when they go. Where and what time they go. So he starts doing that and documenting his findings.
And it's also important to note that his pineal glands, which is what is happening to the young people taking it, it allows them to actually project. It allows them to actually time travel.
Right. So if he were to have like a calcified pineal gland, he wouldn't experience that. But the fact that he can is allowing him to go back and forth. And there seems to be a time limit, like 7 minutes. He has like a certain amount of time before it'll like before he has to get back to the place something where he has to find something to then get back, whatever.
You have to be at the spot that you entered that time frame at, I believe was also part of it.
I thought it was like you have to find something from your time in that setting.
Well, you're about to get to when he finds Brianna, the missing daughter, that's what he tells her, that he says you're going to start seeing contemporary objects and you need to make it back to that rock, so you get...
Oh, sure. So he because he's dying, Steve is dying, I guess in combination with his closest friend's daughter missing, he decides to make it his last mission in life to find this bitch. So he does, he's able to locate her because earlier in the film, there was like a birthday party. And the 18-year-old was like sitting on a rock, and she seemed to kind of be acting funny when Steve was talking to her. So it pops into his head that he should go to that rock and get high on Synchronic. And lo and behold, it takes him to that place. He finds her, like you said, tells her where to go. She comes back, and Steve stays, obviously to just never return. The end.
But does have one final moment of goodbye with Jamie Dornan,
Yeah.
where he appears all fuzzy and shakes his hand.
All right. Where would you like to begin?
So you haven't seen any of the previous works from these filmmakers. Benson and Moorhead are kind of.
I thought of Benson and Hedges, the cigarettes,
Yes,
and then Agnes Moorhead.
Yes, I don't believe any relation to Agnes. So they've kind of amassed a cult following on the indie circuit. Their film Spring in 2014. With Lou Taylor Pucci. It's worth seeing. The Endless was their last film. Also worth seeing. Also kind of doing a time warp kind of thing. I felt, and so this film stars their biggest names yet with Mackie and Dornan. And I felt like it suffered from a lot of the same problems I had with their last two films, was that they have these really innovative ideas, not unlike Christopher Nolan, that kind of become a little convoluted, and at the end I feel nothing because there's no real character development to really land the poignancy that should be the dramatic catalyst behind why someone like Anthony Mackie's character is doing what he's doing. That said, it's interesting, and it becomes, as you had mentioned, kind of two different films. And I kind of prefer the first half because it feels like more like a noir thriller.
Yes.
The designer drug thing, this is more like I don't want to say more intelligent, but it's doing more interesting things than something like Project Power.
Yes.
With Jamie Foxx, which came out earlier this year on Netflix. Yeah.
I'll just go down my little list. So when Anthony Mackie's character is at that party, and Jamie Dornan's like newborn baby, like the mom is he wants to hold the baby, and the baby starts crying, and Steve says, "Oh, this old racist baby."
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was funny. When Steve's doctor explains to him he has a tumor, that was some of the worst bedside manner I have ever seen. Like, that man just seemed like... it was very unsatisfying to watch. I don't... that, and that was a choice to make this doctor kind of cold. It would have felt... I don't know. Like, it just... The film, the way it looks, feels sick. It has, like, this jaundiced tone to it. It's... how would you describe the tone of the film?
I think it's trying to look like that,
but like the feeling that, because I didn't, it doesn't feel sad or maybe depressed. I don't know, but then on top of that, to have this doctor be so flat with Steve about his terminal condition.
And then Anthony Mackie, we're told, is kind of in this like post-Lothario phase where he slept with all the women in their friend group, and which kind of gives strange vibes with his interactions with Brianna, the daughter that he brought up. It was shot by Aaron Moorhead, who's lensed a few of their features. He also shot Straight Outta Oz, that Todrick Hall short mid-length film, and it's written by Benson. So they direct the films together, but each of them kind of have their separate other things they do. I felt like the visual look had no real punch, no real effect.
Anthony Mackie's Steve, he keeps having flashbacks to like floating coffins,
which are explained in exposition by Dornan,
which were his like parents
and sister that were kind of unearthed during Katrina, which made me think. So, allow me to go off on a small tangent. Because in the dialogue, their race is brought up, but it's not really dealt with. The subtext of race in post-Katrina New Orleans isn't really dealt with, because when it finally is explained what the coffins are, to me that's a very strong metaphor for like the very earth is like throwing out these black bodies that are being pillaged. And then also during one of Mackie's sojourns to back in time, he does end up in a KKK hovel, but it doesn't really play or speak directly to a black character and specifically in Louisiana, going back in time and the kind of anxieties and fears and bullshit that they would have to put up with.
There's a lot going on in this movie, and I was left unsatisfied with almost all of it.
Sure. Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
The doctor, the scientist trying to explain how Synchronic works
Also,
was confusing. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a, whatever degree I would need to understand what he was talking about, I don't have. But I wasn't satisfied with that explanation.
you know what I did learn? How to pronounce pineal, because I mean, there's this old favorite film of mine, The Leech Woman, which has the way they pronounce it in there is the pineal gland.
Anthony Mackie's character talking to that patient in the ambulance.
Oh yeah, that
about
was
physics. That was grating.
Oh, well, he's talking about the patient. He's with Dornan back there,
right.
but he's referencing a letter that Einstein wrote, and he quotes damn near this whole letter to get to the phrase that we need to hear, which is about the past, present, and future being stubbornly persistent illusions.
You commented, so there's a little sort of montage of Steve going back and forth in time, and he has this like marker board that he's saying like finding one, blah blah blah, finding two, blah blah blah, and you put down that it feels like a TikTok ruse. Yeah, I agreed.
Yeah.
Since people seem to react to me calling people ugly, Jamie Dornan is an attractive man, and the lady who plays the wife is as well.
Oh, Katie Aselton, nothing to do. She has nothing to do in this.
Nothing to do. But that daughter who went missing, she was a little crunchy.
I think the reason you're bringing that up too is because Anthony Mackie's character says several times like, "Oh, good thing you're not ugly like your dad." So which we were
Yes,
but Jamie Dornan's your dad.
If I were her, I would think that's shade.
Yeah.
Like, my dad's attractive and I'm not, so why do you keep telling me that? I don't have anything else.
I just think that there are interesting things going on having to do with displacement. I just don't know that any of them tie together in a way that you could ultimately write a thesis about, at least. But yeah.
What would you give this film?
2.5.
I would give it 2.5 out of 5 as well. Thank you.